What up, family? Welcome to another mind-bending ending explain video from Teflon TV. I'm your host, Don Tony Teflon, and today we're dissecting the jaw-dropping conclusion, and one that I can clearly say did not see coming from the second season of our favorite television show. As always, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the Don Tony Teflon's breakdowns. Let's get right to it. But before we unravel the enigma that is the ending of this show, let's quickly recap the key plot points that led us to this ending of the second season of From. This season, two characters especially had us on a roller coaster of emotions, and that is Tabitha and Victor. And those are the two that we will be talking about today. In this season, we found out more about Victor than we did in any other season. We found out about his backstory, how his mother used to play the violin for him. We also found out that he had a sister that he totally forgot about due to the trauma that was placed on him from being in Fromville. We also found out that his mother sadly passed away trying to save the kids that were being experimented on. And that brings us to Tabitha. Tabitha had a connection with these children. After surviving being in the tunnels with Victor, all of a sudden, she started seeing all these kids in her head. They kept coming, but they did affect her physically because the one time they did come, her nose started to bleed. So we knew that somehow these memories or flashes or whatever you want to call them were affecting Tabitha physically in the real world. As the season went on, the tension kept building as Tabitha and Victor faced countless challenges, and my predictions about these children being experimented on turned out to be spot on. But little did I know, the most mind-bending revelation was reserved for this final act. Now let us dive into this heart-pounding climax that left all of us on the edge of our seats. The symbolism of Victor showing Tabitha the bottle tree cannot be ignored, hinting at deeper themes that we still have to figure out. And the brilliant use of the camera following Tabitha up the tower, the same scene that we seen her have a vision of, intensified the emotion, making this scene truly unforgettable. And then it happened, the bombshell that shattered our understanding of this story. The reveal that Tabitha was no longer in Fromville. Not only is she not in Fromville, but she's in a hospital and she has been there for a little while. But fear not, family, the Don Tony Teflon is here to untangle this narrative web. As I peel back the layers, you will then discover the carefully laid breadcrumbs that did foreshadow this situation happening. And I will give you each clue that points right to it. Clue number one, the bracelet. We see Tabitha and Ethan go into the back of Mrs. Lou's diner looking for stuff. But while they're there searching, and while Ethan tells her the story of the lonely dragon, we see Tabitha find something. What does she find? A bracelet. A bracelet that she specifically made for her husband Jim and gave to Jim out of Jim's father's boots. Now in season 2, when we see the flashback of Victor's family, we can clearly see Victor's mother has the exact same bracelet that Tabitha made for Jim on her wrist. And where did Tabitha say Jim lost the bracelet?
The what?
The bracelet. I made you after our first few days. From the laces of your father's boots.
Yeah, of course I remember.
Okay. Remember you lost it at the hospital the night Julie was born.
He lost it at the hospital the night that Julie was born. So we have a connection of the end scene hospital and the bracelet being at the hospital. But how does that tie into Victor's mother? Well, I'm going to tell you that a little bit later, but let's go into clue number 2. Clue number 2 is the vision that Tabitha got of her walking inside of the tower. We see her going all the way up the tower that she eventually finds her way into, but while she's walking up these towers during it, she stops and she sees Ethan's toys. And she also sees a playing card and a dump truck on the floor. She bends down and picks up the dump truck, and we can clearly see right there that there's an ambulance 2 steps above her, and the camera points directly to it. What an ambulance associated with it? They're associated with hospitals. Where does she end up at the end of this? She ends up in the hospital. Right after that, she's walking up the tower steps. She kicks over a bottle that falls all the way down and doesn't break. Later, we see when Victor shows her how to get to the tower, it's through the bottle tree. The other part of this vision when she's walking up is that when she's not inside the tunnel, she's somewhere else. The sky is blue, she's looking around, the sun is shining, definitely not in the place, Fromville, that she is during this show. So now that I've given you some of the breadcrumbs that they left so you can figure out that she was going to end up outside of Fromville and inside of a hospital at the end of this season, let me explain exactly to you what this ending means. And by doing so, we'll have to break down the whole scene and I'll explain it. Victor's mom tells him and his sister Eloise to stay inside this underground bunker, keep drawing until the morning when she's going to come back. And when she does come back, then they were going to go home. She then leaves. When she leaves, Eloise runs after her. Victor, too afraid, stays inside of the tunnel. While Victor is telling Tabitha about what happened to his mother, they approach the bottle tree. He says that this is where he found her body. She didn't make it inside of the tree. But Victor says nothing about his sister, so I believe that Victor's sister found the body there, took the bracelet off of her mother, and went inside the faraway tree. Now, Victor says that the reason why his mother was going to the bottle faraway tree was because that's where she would be able to save all of the children. So that would make you think that the children were inside of that tower. But as we can clearly see, there's no way that they had those children inside of that tower. In fact, it's just impossible for them to be there. We do see toys that were inside of the tower that Tabitha seen in her vision of this tower. So at one point the kids were there, but there's no way they can do experiments on these children because we seen Jade when he was inside the tunnel. The kids were laid out on slabs of rocks looking up at the symbol that Jade always seen. And when Jade looked up, he seen the symbol too. But when he looked back, the kids were gone, the rocks were gone, and the symbol was gone. So I don't believe it was happening there. I do believe it was happening in a hospital. And the slabs of rocks are nothing more than hospital beds. If that is true, then that means Victor's mom knew that going through this bottle tree would bring her to the tower, and by being in the tower, she would go to the hospital to save the children who are being experimented on inside of this hospital. So when we see Tabitha make her way all the way up the steps of this tower, thinking that the kids are there, being called by the kids, that's what's making her go there, because she still hears the voices, and then she's confronted by the boy in white. And the boy in white says to her, "I'm sorry, but this is the only way." And then he pushes her out of the window. When she pushed out the window, she then wakes up inside the hospital. So what's going on here? If you want to believe what the story is trying to tell you, they want you to believe that this is a dream, that none of these things actually ever happened, and Tabitha dreamed up and made this whole thing up. But that is not the case. What happened when she was pushed out the window, they didn't show you what happened to her. You see her go through the window and it automatically goes black, and when it comes back on the camera, she's inside the hospital. So I believe when the boy in white said, "This is the only way to get you to the hospital is by me pushing you out of this window." And that's why he pushed her out. Rewinding a little bit, before Tabitha does go into the faraway tree, Victor gives her his lunch pail, and they have drawings that Eloise drew inside of them. So what I think is Eloise is inside of that hospital. Maybe they wiped her memory and she doesn't believe in the Fromville thing because she's been there and she's been working for these people. And when she sees the lunchbox and when she sees her own drawings, that's going to be the proof that she needs to know that she's been living a lie and she really wasn't Fromville and her brother is still in there. She might have had her memory wiped kind of like Victor had his memory wiped. Could be the exact same situation going on. If that is not the case, then you'll never see that lunch pail again. You'll never see her in the clothes that she wore before that. But I think that it is 100% the case. They want you to believe it's a dream. They had people say this over and over again during the show, but it's not a dream. It really is happening. And the people in control are sacrificing children, and it has to do with that hospital. Next season, I'm telling you, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see Tabitha find Eloise. Eloise is going to have the bracelet that Tabitha made from Jim that she took off her mother's body on. Tabitha's gonna say, that's my bracelet. Eloise might not know that that is her mother's bracelet that she was wearing if her memory was completely wiped. But if it wasn't completely wiped, then she'll say, no, this is my mother's bracelet. And then that's how they'll first establish communication. And then somehow Tabitha will find the lunch pail with the drawings, and this is what's going to convince Eloise that everything Tabitha's saying is true. And then that's when they're going to find the wormhole machine that Tabitha went through when she got pushed out the window, that's going to bring them all back into Fromville. And that's how Eloise and Tabitha will make their way back there. That's what I think is going to happen, and that is the ending explained. But you tell me in the comment section what you think. And if you like the way I do this, please thumbs up the video, spread it across the realm, and of course, subscribe. And until next time, you know who it is. Peace and stay sexy.